Craigslist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Welcome back to the Tim and Steve Show. I am Tim Beard.
I'm Steve Morris.
What's going on, Steve?
Not much. What's going on with you?
Another day. It's Monday. It's like every time we get to a Monday now, I'm like, oh, it's Monday. Not that I'm not busy. I have a lot going on. Like, we have softball practice like every night, so the times vary on that, which has made it a little harder since the gym situation. But we're making do, and Miller got it set up so that we can still have practice. Usually I practice an hour and a half now instead of 2 hours, but making do with what we got. Hopefully this weather will keep melting snow and we'll be outside soon. But yeah, busy, I guess. Super busy. We're busy today. We have a meeting later on with the superintendent, and then I have practice tonight, and we want to go to the elementary school before that and just take a look around real quick. And yeah, we came over for lasagna yesterday.
That's good.
Yeah.
2 pieces, 2 helpings of salad. Yeah. Very good. I appreciate it.
Yeah. She he was like, "What do you want for dinner?" Or whatever. I was like, "Let's do lasagna." I haven't done that in a while. So yeah, so we did that, and that was really good. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else she did that day. She did a ton of stuff yesterday. She made breakfast in the morning, and then we went and got Sadie, Amelia's girlfriend. We pick her up in Andover because she lives in Guilford, so it's like a halfway point or whatever. Of course, Amelia was still like sleeping. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like,
he didn't ride with you, or he's sleeping in the car?
No, he's sleeping at home still. And he's like, "That's fine. We'll just go get her." And then, I don't know.
Yeah, see, well, Steve-O don't work that way.
Wow, we shouldn't.
I do not work that way. If you want me to do something for you, you will not be laying in bed sleeping unless you're ill or injured.
Yeah, that's.
Just saying,
I agree.
The Stephen method is a little different than that.
I'm not gonna say I was outvoted on this situation, but I was just to leave it alone. So I just left it alone. But we kept checking yesterday because I'm pretty sure Turbo, our pig, is pregnant and gonna have baby soon, and obviously we're really hopeful about that.
I hope so, because Big Mac will live on.
Yeah,
at least with you. You know, I know you had other piglets, obviously.
Yeah, I'm really hoping. So we just before we left to bring the kids to school this morning, I was like, we just swung down real quick to peek in there, and she was up and nothing yet. So, but I think soon she's kind of laying down more and not eating and drinking as much as usually, which is usually a sign that they're going into birth soon. And Lydia felt her sides the other day too, and she's like, "Oh no, there's definitely something in there." So hopefully she'll have a bunch of piglets, and then we're positive the goat's pregnant too. Now the goat we're not sure about when, probably at some point here soon, because we got Felipe in, I think it was sometime in end of October-ish, and it's 5 months for them, and we saw him mount her about immediately. So, but you don't know if it could have been that. You never know, because we really thought Turbo wasn't pregnant. I'm like, how did we saw that happen too? And I'm like, she gotta be pregnant. She gotta be pregnant. And so,
well, you thought that a couple times last year.
Yeah, we thought for sure, and she wasn't. And this time though, we're pretty positive.
Or I guess within the last year.
Yeah, and then the goat, you touch her sides, and it's funny because goats in the wintertime or when you get to fall, they get huge.
Yeah, I remember last year. I was like, "Good God, what are y'all feeding this?"
Yeah,
thing?
double the size, and you touch them, and it's but then as soon as it gets nice weather and stuff, they skinny right back down.
I was almost overnight last year.
Yeah.
One day I was there, and I was like, "Good God,
well, it's this big, and then
you get her running up and down the driveway." And then the next day I came over, and she was half the size.
Yeah, you feel her sides, and it's hard. She's definitely pregnant, and Lydia's like, "Yeah, her udders are starting to come down." So that's awesome. That'll be the first baby goat we've had, and we love these goats too because they're small and they aren't going to get any bigger. They're, I don't know, yay tall.
Off the desk.
Off the desk. yeah, so it'll be really exciting if all this happens. I got chicks on the way. I think they're either getting shipped out on the 10th or something right close to the 10th. Um, in the past, we've gone to like Tractor Supply or Runnings or whatever and bought them, and I've had good luck and I've had bad luck with it. So they do the same thing. They ship these chicks in from somewhere else to the store, and then the store sells them. So let's just skip that step and just go directly. And I had a really hard time finding females on multiple websites. Hadn't figured that out yet because you have availability throughout the summer. So maybe once a week or whatever, you're hatching eggs. But it's like males are available. But I'm like, well, how do you know? How do you know what that is going to be?
Well, it's probably a percentage, I would guess. Or if they've been doing it for a while, maybe they know that for every 12 eggs,
is-
9 of them are roosters. I mean, I don't know what the. I wonder if that's on there. If you keep talking, I'll look it up and see if there's a.
So it's just weird. So we have, I don't remember what they were now for birds. They're red in color. They're, yeah. I think I know these things. People are like, yeah, what kind of farmer are you? You don't even know what kind of rooster or what kind of chickens you have. But anyways, so they're like, they're the pullets, but they're red in color. So I'm looking like through all the birds that they have because I don't necessarily, they don't have to be that particular bird. So we look through, and this place has a list of, chickens I've never even heard of, but as long as they lay eggs, I don't care really. So finally I was able to find 15 that I could get females, and then I ordered some meat birds too, which I don't care on those because those are meat birds, but, so it makes me wonder, like, how come there's like hardly any females? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, are you going to really try to say that? Because, the cost of eggs has gone up, and then you have, the place in Connecticut that burnt. You're going to tell me now there's a shortage of chickens on Earth? Like, come on. I don't know. So that was another reason, like, all right, let's hurry up and get some chickens. And one of them should be a rooster. And then hopefully we can start doing our own eggs and hatching them, and it'll be cheaper, and then we don't have to worry about anything. Because I was like, is that the next thing? Like, oh, there's a shortage of chicken in the world now, so here, eat this thing we grew in this petri dish.
Hey, as you drink your chemicals over there, and I have my chemicals from the plastic and everything else. I mean, I think we're just being slowly poisoned. If you believe everything that you read, because you don't even have to be a conspiracy theorist, right, to go out and find all the negative ingredients in a Coke, the negative ingredients in plastic, even if they say it's BPA free, you still get some leaching of other chemicals.
Hey, I get you coffee because you're complaining about
No,
this
I
from
appreciate
the
this. No, I'm drinking right out of the little nipple here, like a little baby, little toddler sippy cup.
It was funny. There was a story the other day, and I actually need to find it so we can talk about it on this show at some point soon. But it was basically the gist of the story was that the food that you're eating now is not even really food; it's like imitation of food. They're trying to tell you that they're giving.
I
you
thought
something you
about
shouldn't
that
be
when
eating.
I looked at your 6 boxes of cereal yesterday. Granted, we have cereal in our account. You know what I mean? But it's like you read about all the compressed, whatever they put in there, and you don't really know.
Right.
I mean, you have to trust people, and at a certain point in time, where if your trust fails that easily, then you're almost like bordering on paranoia. But there's enough evidence out there that shows that cereals like what I ate as a kid are very bad for you. And now they've tried to improve it and put all kinds of new wording on the box that make you think it's improved, but it's pure sugar for the most part.
Yeah, and if the words are hard enough that you can be like, you look and you're like, I don't know that word.
If you're like,
Right.
did I learn that in
Right.
chemistry or physics? Not in physics, but you know what I'm saying.
Andrew, I guess she was telling me yesterday, and I didn't look for the story, but it wouldn't surprise me. California, like I have no love lost there. I could care less about California because everything in this country that's effed up is in California. Secondly followed by maybe New York, but if not, it would just be the 2 states above California. So, but anyways, they supposedly outlawed or made Skittles illegal, which we read a story before, and we've talked about this before, that it's like the red dye or something in it. It's outlawed in like most of Europe or something. So we were both kind of like, well, I do like Skittles. However, I kind of can get behind that one because
Well, we talked about that whenever I tried to get you off of Mountain Dew.
I don't drink Mountain Dew very often. Occasionally.
Okay. But you can't even buy Skittles in Europe because of.
Right.
I watched a good, I haven't been on Facebook in years since I was told by somebody that it's not in your best interest to be on Facebook. That's from a military friend. That's about all he said was get off and don't get back on it. So I had to give that warning now. I lost my train of thought. So anyway, I haven't been on there, but I watched these videos, and yesterday a video, it's funny that you're talking about this, came up about red number 5 or red ochre, I don't know, whatever. But it's basically crushed up bugs. Like it takes, I don't know, 5 pounds of bugs to get like enough dye, just a little bit of dye, but it's in like lipstick, it's in our food, and everybody's like, I won't eat bugs, but you already are because they call it natural coloring. It's kind of like when I ruined your vanilla natural flavoring, comes from the anal secretions of a beaver. You don't remember me telling you that?
Did you ever verify that?
Yeah, I mean, you can look it up right. I mean, you can actually find that, so it's probably not true if you can find it right here.
So vanilla extract, aka extracted from beaver anal glands.
Extract flavoring beaver. Let's see. Beaver butts emit goo used for vanilla flavoring. National Geographic. I've told you this before. I've looked it up.
know.
I don't. This is why Steve-O is a skeptic with anything that I hear. For the most part, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There's always a string attached or something where you're like, oh, it's all natural, and then you read the thing as like natural, other natural flavors or whatever, but it doesn't tell you that they got it from a beaver butt. This was a big deal because they traced it back to a big coffee brand a few years ago. That's how I know about it. One of the big coffee brands that I won't name by names, but they at least used to use it. I do not shop at that coffee shop.
Was it in your cup?
No.
No.
Oh, I love Folgers. That's what I used to drink with my grandma when I was 6 years old. I'd sit there.
Growing up, my dad would always
Table drinking.
Maxwell House or Folgers.
Yeah,
too.
those are the two.
Yeah.
When I was in Montana, I kind of tasted it. Like, it reminded me of being with my grandparents because that's who I used to drink coffee with. Like, I didn't do it, like, it wasn't a day-to-day thing, but when I went to the farm, I would drink with them because you get up early and you're out the door working. But anyway, I said, oh, wow, I like this taste. Is this something special? And I could tell by her look, like, this dude's an idiot. This is like Folgers or whatever. I could tell by her look, but
Have you had coffee before?
well, she was like, but it was like a diner. It wasn't like some fancy place. And I was like, it tastes like what my grandma used to serve. And she's like, well, then you're probably correct. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, I think at first she thought I thought it was some, but I tasted either Folgers or Maxwell House. I could tell it was.
It's funny because we went down south with my grandfather a bunch of times. Took him with me. He's never been anywhere, and like he just drinks coffee mostly and black. Just that's how he drinks his coffee. No problem. But the thing is, every place you go, the water's different, so the coffee tastes different. And he couldn't do it. He'd go down, like especially Florida. Florida was the worst. He's like, it's just disgusting. Like it just tastes so much different. And it's funny because we all have that. Like some people love like Fiji water. Oh, this is great stuff. And like that stuff tastes like crap. Like to me personally, like me, I'm a Poland Springs guy, and I can do that Crystal Glacier. Like there's only a couple off brands I can do that taste decent, but then there's other ones I'm like, that's gross. It just tastes weird. But it's because our water's all a little different. That's why Coke tastes different in different countries because the water.
Well, our water tastes different if you're not on, because I don't have chlorination going through mine.
Right.
I have well water, so.
I don't really taste chlorination in Newport's water. It used to be really bad.
Well, see, like when I'm down in Texas, I can smell it.
Yeah.
Like taking a shower, I can smell the.
It's the only thing they're required to do
Chlorine.
is put chlorine in it to kill anything that's in it that could harm you. So as far as like someone's like, well, do you filter the water? Like, I don't, like, apparently Newport does up to, on the Union Road one, they do have some sort of sand filter. But, like, for instance, Lebanon, unless it's changed, like, doesn't. Because I was kind of, like, perplexed by it. I'm like, wait, you don't filter the water? Because I put water systems in and stuff for customers for, hardness is a big thing around here. Or, like, iron isn't a bigger thing, especially if you have a well. But they don't. They and up there in lead, they take it from it comes right from the river. That's why it's so important not to let things go in the river. And then they obviously have to test the water, whatever it is. It might be weekly. It's probably weekly because
I don't think it's weekly. I looked that up last week.
it's got to be at
And,
least
like,
monthly, I would think.
Well, I bet, you know what? So I think that there's probably different standards. So whatever standard I found for, like, what, you know what I mean? So I'm sure you got to send it twice a year to this place.
Yeah, the state's
Twice
going
a
to
year to
require
this
it.
place. You know what I mean? And so the town may say,
Because their employees might test it
yeah,
daily.
their employees may
Just-
know, because
Yeah.
the river probably turns and churns differently as the spring comes.
Right.
So I would suspect that they do. That would be my guess.
So it's just interesting though, like, they obviously have to chlorinate to kill anything that's in it, so it doesn't harm you. But that's it. And actually, we just jumped to this topic. I'll go back.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
Just so since we're talking about water and chlorinating it, the reason why, so anybody thinks I'm some crazy person, with fluoride, like the reason why I question fluoride is because you can find, right, and then it's usually labeled as, oh, these are quacks or whatever. But if you look at old skeletons where they have them stacked up and, fear tunnels and stuff back in the old days, how they would just rack skeletons, and you see their teeth, they're straight and white. Now, granted, they're probably bleached with time or whatever, but you don't see a lot of, like, summer teeth in all those old skeletons that you see.
What do you mean, summer teeth?
Some are here, some are there. Like, they're straight and they just look good, man. You know what and so I've read up on it, and back then we ate a lot more hard, to try to find, is it like fluoride really necessary, right? Because
Right.
I don't want to just be like, oh, this guy said fluoride's bad, it's bad, right? So look into it, and we used to eat a lot of harder things, we'd gnaw on things, and so, like, getting that harder pressure. Now we eat soft, manufactured, fake foods. Yeah.
Acidic stuff that's not
Right.
good for anything. Yeah, no.
So again, I can't say for sure anything about the fluoride. I do know that I buy tooth powder, fluoride free. Even though Nikki took my fluoride free toothpaste for the last 3 days, I've been using fluoridated toothpaste, and my mouth has never felt as clean. So
Well, I'll take
there's-
that as how you like,
So take it for what you will.
So we're
And my hygienist said that I'm crazy that fluoride's good. So just to be fair there.
So we'll just jump to this topic. It's just second on my list. It's not really a big deal, but we're on water. So Thursday night we talked about lead at the school, and so we had a lead test done, which we do however often. Once again, I don't know the exact numbers of how often we test our water, but probably not that often because the water comes from the town. The town has to test it. So, but anyways, you're allowed, according to the EPA, which is a federal standard, you're allowed 15 parts per billion of lead in water. Well, the state and someone really thought so smartly about this. So, like, that was probably not a smart way to say that, but
They were thinking long-term effects. They were like, there's a good idea, Ferry.
Yeah, this is a great idea because lead's bad, and
It is bad,
which is
allegedly.
yeah. I mean,
It's proven.
But
So
most
I
of-
don't even think I have to say allegedly, but lead's not
but
good
most
for
of
you.
these kids getting lead poison are like eating paint chips or like,
Well, that's what we're told.
I mean, that's kind of belief, I guess. I don't know. I watched my daughter like eat her crib, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, good thing it was newer because it didn't have lead in it. But granted, my grandparents and uncles all grew up with lead, and they're still here alive, and they had lead paint on their toys. So be that as it may. But anyways, so the
Yeah,
town
exactly. That's why it's kind of like,
exactly. So the town is still allowed 15 parts per billion. Okay, cities same thing, but schools and daycares are only allowed 5. So let's think about this, people. So if you're on, and all the schools are, at least Newport and Claremont. And I mean, you might find a school that has its own well in New Hampshire. I'm sure you will, but that's just a few of those. They get the water from the town. So in the town, water may have zero lead in it. I don't know. And we'd have to find out what that number is, okay? But if their number's 10, and that water's coming into the school, it sure the hell isn't going to be less than 10. It's not going to lose parts per billion. It's just going to stay there. So the only choice the school would have would be to put a filter in, at least if the water level from the town's higher than that 5 mark. Now, if it's nothing, then okay.
I would suspect it's not.
I would think it's nothing.
If we had devices that weren't over the threshold.
Yeah. So.
And then, did you get the letter? Has the letter been sent out yet?
Yeah. So the whole thing is, and people, and this is what gets me, and I'm gonna have to, Todd Fratzel, I'm gonna have to agree with you that some people just make comments and they're just so stupid because it's like, where did you hear this? Like I saw a comment the other day.
So I wouldn't call it stupid. I would call it misinformed.
Okay, misinformed. I think it's stupid, but misinformed.
No, but
that's fair.
If I'm one of those
That's
people that is out there and I think I know what I'm talking about, which we think we know what we're talking about some of the time on here.
Yeah.
But by you calling them stupid, you're not going to help them understand better because now you put them on the defensive.
Okay, I would say misinformed. I apologize for calling you stupid then. So there's just so many things out there, and I'm like, one comment, and right, whatever, who cares? One comment was, I heard the buses are going to go where the old rec center is, and I'm like, who the freaking hell heard that? Like, we're on the school board, and then there's people on the select board, and they're like, and I bet if you ask any 10 of us, we'll be like, that's interesting. First we heard about that. Like, where do people just make up this stuff from?
I don't know. Well, I mean, that's the hard part, right? Is because they might have heard that from somebody that they trust.
Well, I caught a lady doing it the other day with something that happened at school, and like it was a serious topic that she shouldn't be discussing. Period. But so, like, I put her in her place. Like, oh, this is what happened. And I'm like, well, actually, no, that's bullshit. That's not what happened. I know exactly what happened, and stop talking about this because you A, shouldn't be talking about it, and B, you're talking out your ass. You don't know what you're talking about, and stop spreading rumors because I mean.
Yeah.
Andrew's always hard on her about that. Like, don't spread rumors, right? So, just get the information. So, it's real simple. Now, if you looked up something and you're like, hey, I got a piece of paper right here written by so-and-so that said that the buses are going to go there. All right, perfect. Now present that to me and I'll be like, see? All right. That's not misinformation then. Maybe that's not going to happen, but just like a lot of the things, like, you know, the whole thing with the freaking bidding thing. Well, okay, well, I have a letter saying that the state didn't make a decision, the town did. So you can keep saying that it was the other way around, but...
Well, there's obviously a disagreement between the town and the state, and
so
whether you care or not, that's up for your individual... But you know what I mean? Like, something's not...
Sure, something's weird. So,
Something's weird.
Back to this letter to school. So, one thing is, I don't even know, and did we not have the numbers that night?
No, so that's what I was going to address because I think I kind of know where you're going with this.
Well,
because we were told that they were like in the 6 range, so they were below.
Yeah, but then if you look at Richard's numbers, they were off the chart, which
Right,
is
so
probably a false test.
Right,
So
and that's what
we never
Rodney
should've-
said. Right, so
We shouldn't have released those numbers.
right because
We
that
should have
makes-
waited for a second test. Now, if the second test come back similar, then okay. But so, had I known more about that, I would have been like, okay, don't release those numbers because clearly those numbers are completely ludicrous.
Right.
Now, granted, if they do come back the same, then maybe they are, but that's pretty damn high.
Yeah, they're like anomalies. Whenever you look at data collection points, you have your outliers. Those are
Right.
outliers that have to be retested because it's not that high.
Right.
So I'm tracking that, but we didn't know So I see this is with any organization like that. Like this is just in general. You have your initial report. Just like if you turn on the news and you're looking at the initial report, it's always wrong. There's maybe not the whole thing, maybe not the spirit of it, but there's wrong information because it's happening immediately and people are seeing one side of something, or you know what I mean.
Right.
And so you have to be patient And so you would send out, hey, we have some lead stuff issues going on. So we're going to shut down 6 of these things, and we're going to get retests, and we're going to get filters installed, and we have it well at hand because you have outliers. And so we got the initial information, which was like, yeah, everything's well below. It is, however, we weren't told, however, comma, there were X number of outliers
Right.
that have to be retested.
Right.
That's the part that we were missing, and I also the superintendent was missing that because I had a conversation with her, like individually, not as
Yeah.
but you know what I mean, like, and kind of talked about her with this kind of stuff, like, hey,
Right.
that stinks. You got to like be patient and some you want to put information out so you don't want to look like you're hiding things, but you also don't want to put out erroneous information.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, that happens with initial reports at every level.
And probably one of the things she should have done, and we can mention this to her, like when we meet with her, is just like, hey, next time, like because she put on What's Up Newport the numbers, which is exactly what she should do, but maybe then in that said, hey, rewatch the meeting from Thursday night where we discussed this, because then people would have got information from that and been like, oh, the reason the numbers are what they are now, and it's like, oh no, we have a lead issue, is because it's only because the state changed the number.
Right,
It's
that's
been
the
15
important part.
Exactly. So if people are panicking, oh my goodness. Now let's go back to the state and bash on them for a little bit, okay? So a lot of people in town are, have apartments or whatever, and they get city water. So your kid's at school, and he's drinking from the water fountain, and now he's only allowed 5.0,
And the
to
school's
nothing.
going to do what they have to do to get it
Yes.
below that threshold.
which they have to, and they will. So okay, but now your kid goes home, and he or she could drink up to 15 parts per billion out of the town water, because that's what the EPA standard is for the whole country. So, let me get this right. So it's not safe for these kids to have more than 5 parts per billion at school, but if they're at home drinking out of a faucet, then it's okay to have up to 15. Like, if you're going to change it, you should change it for everything, not just the school. The whole thing. All right, town, you can't have this amount.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's one side talking to the other, like putting on. What your point you're making is they pass standards that don't make sense from a standpoint of we're on a secondary system reliant upon the primary system, and if the standard is tighter than the primary system, you're now forcing a cost on all the schools, almost as if it's on purpose, almost if it's like, do any of these people, are they related to a filter company? That's what it makes you want to do, right? Like, so some people are like, oh, well, we got to change it. But if you look at the logic and reasoning behind it, it's flawed. That's your issue, is that 15 here where it's released into the town, and the town may have stricter, right? So we're hypothesizing and pontificating
well, the town may have,
on information
0.
that we probably should call and say, hey, what's our...
but still, maybe that's what they're thinking, is like, well, the town would have none anyways. But it doesn't matter. It's just the whole principle behind it. So if you're going to change it for that, then make it so the town can only have that as well.
Well, yeah, it should be a standard across
So
the
then
state.
it's just, this is how it is. Now, I get it. Daycares on private wells or schools that are on private wells, sure. I have no problem with that standard. But granted, if they're from the 70s, I'm not even sure, like say late 70s and newer, they're not going to have lead anyways, because they used lead in the solder that put the joints together. That's the only. There's no lead pipes. And they use lead pipes, but that was drainage. That's not going to affect your water. It's not even connected. It's the opposite side of it. But so I get it. Lead's not great, whatever. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. But when you make a law, legit, you made it a law here, and then, but this is still allowed this amount more. Okay, what good is that?
Yeah, I would see. I don't know. Like, I tried to look it up last week to find out. We probably could call the water department and say, hey, what's our threshold for lead
Right.
coming out of the system or whatever, and they probably could answer it in like 2 seconds.
When I asked Todd, just be like, hey, what? He's like, well, 15. But it's what he meant was you're allowed up to 15, which I knew. But I didn't know if,
Like we have a system that
yeah.
filters it even
Well, no,
more, or
the lead's not, see, lead's not natural. It's not natural in water. Like manganese is, hardness, iron, all those, but lead's not. So the only way you're getting the lead in is through
the pipes,
a pipe that would have
fittings.
lead, which on the town side, you don't sweat stuff underground. It's all compression, and so it's probably none, right? But it's just the point of it all.
No, I get you. It's the
But then and then people panic, right? People, I mean, rightfully so, right? Like, oh, we have all these lead issues in our school, and our kids are drinking it. But you're missing the biggest point of it all. None of that's factual because they just changed the number on us.
right.
So somebody said that number is no longer safe. It was safe for all these years and still safe around the whole country, except here in New Hampshire. We've decided this. And granted, you might go to New York. There could be different numbers.
Right.
But the EPA standard is 15. And like I said, this is parts per billion. That's a very, 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 very small amount. I would fairly say that like that amount would not harm you if you drank it every day. Like, because if the EPA is 15, it's probably beyond what it needed to be anyways. But now they go to 5. Like, what's the biggest problem is going to be Richard's School. It's so old. It's an old building. That's why I asked, well, are you getting lead in any of the new part of the building? I'm pretty sure they said one of the faucets, yeah. Well, then it has to be coming from the old school because there's no lead in the new school. 0. They stopped using it so long ago. Like, my whole career in sewer and drain, and I've done, obviously, plumbing stuff with, sweat pipes, whatever, here and there, and they haven't used lead and solder in way longer than that.
decades.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It was more used in like heating systems because it didn't matter. But they don't even. I don't think you can't even get solder anymore with lead in it. I don't believe.
Well, that's one of my critiques of government in general. Whenever, right? So you want, because the majority of us in this town aren't sitting there like, I wonder what the lead in the school drinking water is on any given day. Most of us, it's not even a thought, right?
Right.
So it's good that you have somebody who's thinking about that. But then whenever you impose what amounts to be a double standard, that either way it's going to put a cost on either the town or the school, right? So now they put it on the school, and our schools in New Hampshire, we've had since 1994 a case that was won that said we don't get enough for our students towards our students' education. So that's why our school taxes are higher, is because the taxes that the state collects aren't coming back in for us on the school side. We're paying for everything minus $4,000.
And they just voted to give charter schools more money.
Yeah. So I mean,
Like, if you really want to look at education in New Hampshire, like really look at education in New Hampshire.
but like Jeff's point the other night, where he was saying, you guys, and the town says it all the time, almost as if we're proud of the fact that we have such high taxes, that we collect so much taxes. I would tell you that my personal opinion is I despise any taxes beyond what's necessary. And a lot of people don't understand that, like, your income tax doesn't go towards road improvement. It's the gas tax, right? So you can get rid of an income tax from that perspective, and you still have money for road improvements. So a lot of times I'm like, I hate taxes, and people are like, I don't mind paying them. I mind paying whenever there are taxes on taxes on taxes. So we're like taxed so much when there's false representations of what the taxes are. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of taxes. If we had somebody, to go back to my main point, somebody at the state's like, hey, you guys need to look at lead. We run a lead test. We look at the research. I mean, there's educated enough people in this town to where if you had a water committee for the school, I mean, granted, you'd have to have a lot of committees, but that's the whole point of being free, right? Is being free sometimes doesn't mean you have a lot of free time. What it means is you're responsible for yourself. And
right.
you got to you might have to work harder to be free, but you're free. You don't have somebody telling you what to do all the time. You don't have somebody making you take money from you to put an improvement in your school that you don't necessarily want. And so my point, going back to what Mr. Kessler was saying, and what they have said all the time, that we are, 2/3 of the taxes in town, is we need people to let the state government know they need to pay their fair share. According to the Constitution, this isn't like Stevens, whatever, it's the Constitution says education, we're responsible for providing an education where you succeed in life outside or school, whatever it is.
The only thing in defense of that I would say is, yep, you're right. The school budget's twice the town budget, but we also have probably between 3 and 4 times the employees the town has. So if you factor in all that, and then we, provide education to 900 kids, like, it's not comparing apples to apples by no means. Which, I mean, I get it.
But like, it's not I don't take it personally. Like, I think they think we do.
No.
Like, they mean it, because I don't want
No, because it
that
wouldn't be
high of tax.
No, because if the state did their job and actually funded
Our
it
taxes
fully,
would be less, and we may not be in this predicament we're
Right.
in, where every time we turn around, they're imposing something new on us that's going to cost us all money. It's not like they're coming up with ways, hey, let's drop this, put this onus on the parents, or, let's look for community outreach and have the churches, like they used to do, fill in this gap. No, what they do is, you need to go hire. They
it's
throw
mandate.
money at things, but they're throwing money that's not theirs. Like, it comes to us,
Right.
whatever. To
So-
your point, now you have a 5 parts per billion when the standard is 15. So now you're costing every school and every daycare in the state money to ensure that they're stricter than the town. And again, like you said, the town might be 0 coming in. I'm sure it's probably
Right.
pretty low, but
Right. But it's the point. Then just make it so it's 5 everywhere. Wouldn't affect the town then, right? In that theory. However, it would affect the town one way because, for instance, the town office, they're still allowed 15. So your kids there drinking while you're over there getting your car registered, or their employees, they're still allowed 15 there. So, and that building's old, just like Richards. So I don't know. It's possible that it has no lead, but it's also possible it's close to that 15 mark too. But the other point is, and this is what happens all the time, and if you want to talk about the funding education, how much it costs and everything, well, this just came with a mandate. We were just told you will fix this.
right.
And, there's a 50% match grant. Okay, but if it's $500,000 to fix it all, which is obviously an exorbitant amount of number I'm just throwing out there,
Just making
it could be far less, could be 50 grand, I don't know. But we still have to come up with half of it, and they come up with the other half. Now, I can tell you right now, replacing some of the pipes in Richards will be an extremely expensive thing because they're in walls.
if they have to.
Yes, which thus this is a bigger issue for like the board, and we'll have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do here? The short-term solutions, we'll just put filters on all these fixtures that filter out lead, and that should get us by. However, we'll need a long-term solution at some point, but this is just another mandate from the state with no money. It's not like, hey, you'll do this and we'll provide you the money. Oh, okay. No, you'll do this, and sometimes they provide money, sometimes they provide no money. Sometimes they just say, no, you'll do this, and find out how to fund it, and that's it.
It's interesting how many grants there are out there for everything on the school and the town side. I mean, we get a lot of them between,
Yeah,
so I'm thankful for that, but it's also, where's all this grant money coming from?
taxpayers, not all of it, obviously, but
Oh, I know. But
big majority of it, it's just federal money. That just
and then you look
floats in.
at our budget as a country, and we're in the red. We're not balanced. So we keep coming up with things, and it's like, did y'all never take a math class? Like, you can't start getting to the positive without getting rid of some of these negative numbers that you're
Yeah.
contributing to. So at some point in time, like we said, like the turnip's going to be dry. It's a good idea. Ferry is running out of resources very rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that's not to say I'm not for health and protection or anything else. Like I said, like you still, like I'm not sitting here every day of the week ever thinking, I wonder how much lead's in my water.
no.
No, I have thought like I probably should get my water tested. It's been a few years since I moved in just to make sure everything's going.
You can, but if you're an artesian well, nothing's changed. Like you should be fine. You don't typically test it. Like it's not usually necessary. You usually test like you used to do water tests. Like go to customer's house, check manganese, iron, hardness, pH, that kind of stuff. But typically, like, like bacteria test or anything like that, that would be serious. You'd send that out to the state. The state tested at a lab, and then even if you had bacteria in the water, they just put a UV system in that kills it. So it's not like, oh, well, it's junk. It's just a whatever. But so over the weekend, I was looking at some different selectmen meetings and stuff like that, and one thing I never did get to watch was the public hearing on the tax abatement for the 169 Sunapee Street. So I watched the first part of it. I did not get to watch the second part, but then I watched some of another meeting. But one thing I just want to mention is like this paragraph in the end, and the reason I want to bring it up is because of what Jeff said on Thursday night's meeting. But so this is about the RSA 79E, which is a tax abatement. So Selectman Teller made the motion, and this is from the meeting from, I believe it was the 16th of January. Let me double check because I don't want to say the wrong thing and get people to be all. I think it was this one.
I'm checking the minutes.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the minutes. No, I think it was the first one. The second. No, maybe it was December.
This is the one you sent me, December 16th or 20.
Yeah, I think it was the 19th. Yeah, it was 19th. Excuse me, December 19th. Sorry. So Selectman Teller made the motion to approve the request for the RSA 79E, which is abatement for the Dexter, Richards, and Sons Woolen Mill application, John Levitas, for a 3-year period. So this is the old Ruger Mill, or the mill up on, this is 169 Sunapee Street. It was seconded by Selectman Connell, and Selectman Burrow said that 3 years would give him enough time to see the impact on the town. He was comfortable with the motion for 3 years. Selectman Sayer concurred. Selectman Burrows also brought the public was not aware of some information the board had concerning the request because it was not public information, and that the decision was based on more information than could be given. And then Chairman Kessler, roll call vote, 5-0, passed. So there's a few things I want to say about that. First of all, I don't understand why any of this would be confidential, because it doesn't involve personnel or like.
Oh, if there's a contract negotiation with that company, then maybe.
That would mean the town is negotiating with this company, which would be very unethical. I don't know. I just find that.
I don't know that it would necessarily be unethical. I mean,
here's the thing though. This is public. You represent the town, okay? We put you there to represent the town, make decisions based on the people. But I just feel like recently in this town, at least, it seems like an awful lot of secret stuff.
But this is the same thing that they called us out on, for going to secret to talk about our issues with them with the bus barn, right? So,
but that would involve a lease or negotiations that would hurt the public, would be contrary to public.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So if they're trying to figure out and they're talking with them about the abatement, right, because they're making a request.
Well, they can't do any of that in secret. It has to be in a public hearing, which it was. So, but anyways, I think the information, now I'm just speculating, but the information here that was the public wasn't given was what Mr. Kessler said on Thursday, that, well, Sununu was giving us $10,000 per unit, so $700,000 for that. Now,
this is what your assumption is.
I'm assuming that's what it is, but clearly, like.
But I'm thinking it could be something else. But
maybe, but that was
not, and that's I don't think it's necessarily anything nefarious. What, like, because it happens even up on the national level. Because if you recall, AOC didn't want Amazon getting tax abatement for bringing in all those jobs to her district. Right, and so there was a negotiation between somebody in the government and Amazon on that. So for me, I unless that was illegal too, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there are negotiations that it might be, you know what I'm saying? Like, if, just like you said, there's people who can watch our show, that can watch the selectmen, even us, when the selectmen watching ours. Like, it's easy to misunderstand, or if we're not being very clear, to make it confusing. And so the best thing to do is is to try to address it and
Ask questions just like we do.
Right. So, like
But the
yeah.
thing is, I'm going to say, okay, so at this public hearing, the board should have brought forward and said, oh, so the town knows, the citizens, we have $700,000 available to us for this project from Sununu that we'll be getting back.
If we fill those apartments,
Right.
Because
Well, no, once he builds it, that's all it is. They just have to be there. They didn't have to fill them. They just have to be built, which means they added housing inventory into the town. So I assume the one on Spring Street was outside of the scope of this because I believe it happened before this came in. Because I remember them coming to the town trying to get like $500,000 to develop. I believe it was the one by the airport because Sununu had money that they just put in these communities to try to increase housing. Because obviously, yeah, I get it. Housing's an issue. I agree 100%. But when you're adding 42 units, and then if you add another 70, that's a lot of units all at once to throw onto the town. And you potentially could add, if you added one kid per unit, which maybe that's a really high number, but what do you think 130 kids or something would do in the school? There are 110 kids would do in the school district if it was overnight or over a short period of time. I just don't understand, like, and if you watch the meeting, and Mr. Spalding called this out, he's like, it's almost like the board is advocating for the construction company, not advocating for the town, which in some ways I get because, I mean, our economic developer was trying to get this to happen, which is part of the master plan. I get that. But just be above board with everything. Just be like, hey, just so you know, this is what we stand to get out of it too. And then.
And what we plan to do with that money if we get it.
Right. Like if you
Because
guys.
that could be, and
If this stuff happened and it felt more above board, I think there'd be more support from the community on things. Like, oh, okay, this is why. But like, this is why, and this is really why, not just, standing behind, well, the town authorized us to do this RSA 79E. Okay. Like, I don't remember that. Bert seems to remember it. And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure when we did it, we were talking about North Main and South Main because those buildings, whatever. Which, okay, I'm not going to argue where it is, but just be above board with everything. Just tell everyone, here's the deal. We have $700,000 that we can.
we stand to gain
stand to gain out of this.
$700,000 if
So
we,
now the tax abatement is only $200,000. Okay, so now maybe like, oh, well, all right. Now it's making a little more sense. It's not as bad, and I do, and I want to. In the meeting, Mr. Kessler said that right now we consider it like $20,000 per kid to go to school because we take our budget, divide the amount of kids, and that's about how it comes out, right? And he made a point, and it was a good point and a valid point. If 10 kids were to come into the school, that doesn't necessarily mean it's costing the school $200,000 more, because if 10 kids leave the school, the budget's not going to drop $200,000. However, we still need to be careful because if 30 kids go in there, if you get enough kids quick enough, now you're going to have to hire another teacher. Now you're going to have to. Now it starts to very much affect the budget. So
right, if they're spread out, if there's 10,
Yeah.
spread throughout,
yeah, 12
Kindergarten
kids,
through-
right, all in a different grade.
no big deal.
Not going to feel it at all. But if you suddenly get 15 kindergartners, it's going to be a serious issue. So I think going forward, for us to be fair and above board and fully, have the information is too like, okay, we need to also remember, yes, that's true. It's not necessarily you add one kid and it adds $20,000 to the budget. It's just how we figure out the math on it. Now, if it's tuition kids, yeah, great. We know. We add another Goshen kid.
No,
We know how much we get out of it. But so to be fair on that aspect, yes, I agree. But if you throw 30 kids
Yeah,
in
it
school,
gets easy
that's a lot.
to because when we first started talking about it, I'm pretty sure I looked at it the same way that Jeff did, which is it's not going to be a big deal until there's like 5 or 6 kids maybe in one grade.
Right.
And 5 or 6 kids we might even be able to handle depending on the grade. But you know what I mean? Like if it's a diverse between kindergarten through 12th grade, not that big a deal. But like you said, 20 in one class, or 20, 15 kindergartners, then yeah, we're going to have space issues, teaching requirements. That's going to cost us money.
Yeah.
And then to your point also is that, like, even at that meeting we were at, because people were, pitchforking for lack of a better term, but like the tax abatement thing, right? Like some of them didn't understand it, but it was still brought up, but it could have, like you said, have been an easy, and sometimes it's hard to think whenever you're up there and you're getting asked questions and you're trying to think in the past what you said or whatever was published versus what they're telling you now in the future. So it's not always easy, but that would have been a nice opportunity to say, hey, yes, we've given them a tax abatement, because on the flip side, we're still going to get from the state, for us doing this, we're going to get $700,000. So we're looking at a $200,000 loss, but it's worth it based on the economic impact we see with these 70 apartments coming in there. We look to have workers that will, fill a need that we see throughout Newport and Sullivan County. Like you know what I mean? But it's never that simple. It's like personal. But what we really need to know is like the truth. And some, like you said, some of us, it might miss us the first time, but if you go back and read the minutes, watch the thing, talk to people, read the laws, and maybe it starts coming in. You can ask more pointed questions. And
It's almost like what should happen is on that one, the applicant presents his case, but then the economic developer presents the economic developer's point of view on what this will do to Newport as far as provide housing that we need.
Right, the strategic,
yes,
long term.
So
the
it
2, 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Yes, it shouldn't be the board, because the board's supposed to be objective in all this. Okay, so the board should be objective in all this, and then you have the economic developer. Allison presents the board with the Hunter and the town's point of view on this project, and then the applicant has theirs, and then the community has theirs, and then between the three, then the selectmen say, okay, we've gathered all this together. Now, in theory, it's what happened, but it doesn't seem as, it seems more like, the select board's pushing for this, saying, yeah, no, we want this to happen because of this, which maybe in their minds, like, hey, we need this to happen, but that's fine.
Because they understand the long-term gains from it.
But it shouldn't be presented. They should be like that trial, like you're the jury, and you're supposed to come in here without predisposed, yeah, I already know I'm going to do this or not do this. And then the town presents their case, and then that, you know what I'm saying? Because then it just seems more above board, seems more like, hey, we're not just.
And it's not even that you're accusing them of not being above board. What you're saying is
not
the information is out there.
Right. Like, hey, we're going to get
minutes
700,000.
are amazing.
Right.
If you miss it, you can read the minutes and get a good understanding of, so let me look at the.
And I would say on this, normally it's, I agree all the time with that, with the minutes, because Maura does an amazing job. But I would say definitely watch at least the December 5th public hearing, because her minutes weren't that great on that. And I think it said right in there, like there was some audio issue or something like that. But if you watch, you can hear it. And NCTV's audio is horrible in this.
Yeah, it's hard to watch some nights.
Yeah.
I'm watching it, and I got to turn it off because it's giving me a migraine.
Yeah, so I don't know, but isn't it just like isn't the whole point of all this just trying to make things a little better?
Yeah,
like Mr. Kessel said things Thursday night, and now like suddenly we're thinking about things, and now we're he brought up some very valid points. I didn't take any of it personal. Maybe whenever he was talking about, he was basically saying whatever is said on the show by you applies to me as well. But I mean, we have different opinions on here. Oh, so you're throwing me under the bus? Like, oh,
no.
Said that,
he should have addressed you, but he said y'all, or he didn't say y'all. I don't think he says y'all, but
in that case, he should actually listen.
Your talk show, or you know what I mean, y'all, your talk show. I don't know. I felt like, because there was one point where I did I'm going to have to go to the tape and see where I said that. Not that I'm throwing you under the bus, but you and I have different opinions on most things. That people would be surprised at how many, like, we discuss things before we come on the show, and we disagree on not everything, but many different things. Where I think I know something, and you're like, have you thought about it like this? Did you see this article or whatever? And I'm like, no. And then
that's the whole point of all this.
Yeah, I know. But somewhere along the way, it became, if I disagree with you, if we're different political parties, or I'm, like I said, I'm an independent, but, and I think you are too, I don't know, like, I don't even know, but because we don't even discuss that really. It's just a matter of,
This is actually why I like Newport politics or like local stuff like this, because it's not this whole left versus right crap. I hate that. Like, I hate it.
it's
Because you can't get to people on the other side when it's the left right stuff, because they won't.
align.
It's like they shut their
Usually,
mind off.
right, it's like whatever the party says, I must do.
Yeah, which I hate that. It's so stupid. That is not how it should be at all. And with like the town stuff,
I don't think any of this stuff
No.
is like politics.
no, people don't look at it that way. They look at it as, what's best for the town or whatever. And yeah, I could go through the Slackman and be like, yeah, he probably votes this way, this way, this way. I don't care how you vote and like that.
Yeah.
Your job is to look out for me, the taxpayer in Newport. And so that's one thing I like about it, is that's like, you're not trying to, I got to try to convince, these people.
But that's the thing, like just having somebody come up and say, have you looked at this? Do you do, just asking us questions, a little Socratic method makes you go back and think, because like I said, I'm usually pretty sure once I make a declarative statement, but if you say, are you sure about that? And I think that, there's one tiny bit that I could have missed something, I'll say, well, I'll go back and look. Because I was sure, but apparently I haven't convinced you or given you something that you were looking for. And so that's why you're like, are you sure? Because I'm pretty freaking sure if I'm talking to you about something, unless I say, and I start off the conversation with, I read this or that and I'm not really sure. That's whenever I'm not sure. But generally speaking, once I read or hear, usually hear because I'm an auditory guy, once I hear something, then I'm pretty much like set in, I'm not going to change me, because once I've heard it and processed it, like it's over with for you. Whatever you try to convince me, if you slipped up.
Or for me, like conversations I've had with people lately, and like, listen, don't say this to anybody, and they'll tell me something. And then I had a long conversation, and then I can't remember what part they said not to say nothing. So I'm like, shit, what was it I was supposed to not say to anybody? And it's very important that I'm careful of that, because the thing is, lots of people talk to me. Lots and lots of people. The reason lots of people talk to me is because I don't attack anyone for their view. Maybe I go to select board meetings.
You did call somebody a moron earlier.
Yeah, but I
stopped you.
I don't know who wrote that. So
I stopped you.
I find out it's one of my relatives, and then I'd be like, yeah, definitely moron. No. It's just about information, everything just being open to the public. And, do I think, Newport's the worst? Hell no. Croydon has always been the most corrupt town. I grew up in that town. Like, you want to talk about corruption and like things being crazy, right?
All you got to do is watch all 100 and some odd episodes of our show and realize that we love the town. You know what I mean? Like, whatever we do is not out of malice or whatever we say.
No.
I personally didn't run for the school board to try to make the school worse. I ran to try to make it better.
Right. Yeah,
My ideas are diverse. I went and I felt like I wasn't being listened to. Yeah. And so I got elected.
I think the biggest thing is, if you have concerns, reach out to your selectmen if it's on the town side, reach out to your board members if it's on the school side, because I think you'd be surprised, at least some of them, because there's things behind scenes that are happening or that haven't happened yet because, you have a meeting every 2 weeks. There's some things that are slower that.
And there's some things that, like, when you look at it, like, this is more of a personal matter than it is like for a school board member.
Or there's times where we have to like literally make a decision between two terrible things. Like, if you do this, it's stupid in that aspect and it's going to hurt here. And if you do it this way, like, we have to make those decisions. And the select board have to make decisions too.
Well, yeah, that's why. Like,
occasionally, obviously, not all the time.
That's why I always say and you said it too, even though you just said that Croydon's corrupt, but Croydon will take on.
It's not as corrupt anymore. They got rid of some elections.
No, but you know what I'm saying?
Staters,
how you're like, they're not afraid to say nope.
Yeah, they take on the state. State always loses.
But there's something. Not that I necessarily want to take on and get in lawsuits or anything else, but if people show up regularly on both sides, and they are apprised of the situation, and they understand how, like on the school side, Department of Education, send stuff down from the, national side, and then you got the state side. So you got all these requirements that they're putting in. And sometimes as a parent or as a citizen of this town, parent of a student that's going to school here, or as a citizen of the town, you're like, why are we doing that?
Well, on the state level, I'd say a lot of decisions being made are to purposely wreck public education. I mean, the head of the Department of Ed doesn't believe in public education, so that tells you anything.
Well, his kids go to private school, allegedly.
Or
I haven't
homeschool or
verified
something,
that,
yeah.
something like that. But the point being, and which, in fairness to him, he did support the inflation covering cost of
Yeah, don't get me
CTE.
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing him under the bus. I'm just saying things are happening in this state that really don't help public education, but they're still happening, like giving more money to charter schools and like a friend of mine's
But
from
people are pulling their kids nationwide out of public school because of
New Hampshire has the highest rate of pulling them out, 14% over whatever the period of time was, like the highest in the country.
right. And so then you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that?
I mean, I always look at New Hampshire, like New Hampshire obviously doesn't put much faith in education because our in-state tuition costs for like our kids to go to school in-state is pretty much the same as an out-of-state tuition. Where
That's
another,
the most expensive
Yeah.
in-state college. That's what you're talking about, college.
yes, college, yeah,
College is, I'm pretty sure it's in the top, we'll say top 5. It's one
The
or
whole
two,
country.
for most expensive. In-state
tells
residency.
you a lot about education and what New Hampshire's value on education is. Probably isn't very high. Probably should change that, but I don't know. That's above our pay grade at this point, but.
But coming together as a town and discussing things and it gives you more options in the sense of, like, as a board, it would be very hard to convince all the other members to go against some mandate that came down, that if we don't do the mandate, then they threaten you, right? Because that's how they operate. If you haven't figured it out yet, they operate under fear of threats to make you comply from everything, even, like with the sewage treatment plant. If you don't comply, we're going to fine you $25,000 a day. Where are you going to get that money from?
Maybe it's $2,500, but
No,
they said $2,500.
up
but-
to 25,000. Like, I'm pretty sure I heard that in that meeting, and I'm pretty sure I heard that. I did go out to the water fountain a few times at like hour 4 of that meeting, so
Well, it's funny though, because
maybe I missed something, but I'm pretty sure it could be up to.
it's funny because I view those threats differently. Some people like kind of laugh because like, oh my God, the state's going to fine you, and you think that's funny, but that's not, like, because they foresee the state with all this power, and for me, I'm like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So if it doesn't pass, and then we're going to start fining you, are you going to come in and physically relocate all the people on this water or on sewer? That's never been done in the history of the United States, and I don't think New Hampshire has the pull to do it. Now, maybe something like California, there's a little better chance, but it's not going to happen. Look at Flint, Michigan, and their water.
That's your go-to.
It's the biggest. Like, I watched that whole thing too. Holy hell! Like, what's happened there? Like, they're fining them too. They couldn't fix their water. You're gonna fine them. Like, okay, we can't fix the water because we need probably hundreds of millions of dollars because it's it's a big city and whatever. But so let's think about that. Can't afford to fix it, but we'll fine you X amount per day. And like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Are we gonna imprison everyone in the town of Newport for going against the rules of the?
No, what they said was they wouldn't allow
Nothing new.
Anything new. And then if I were on the town, I would say, okay, well,
There's not much new to put in on the sewer system, anyways.
no, but
Most
also
new things-
he also said that, like, I couldn't get a
That's
if I
bullshit.
needed a
That's
replacement.
complete bullshit. That is 100% fabricated lie. This,
How do you figure?
Because the Department of Environmental Services cannot tell you You can't put a septic system on your property because the town of Newport's out of compliance with their sewer system.
That's what they said in the meeting.
They say that, but they say lots of things that they don't know. They're talking out their ass.
I'm pretty sure they probably, that's not, like, why would they threaten that?
Because it's just another scare tactic.
So our town would engage, I don't think our town would engage in fear tactics like that. I mean, they would repeat what they were told, I'm sure, because.
Just like one excavator is not like another excavator, and this is probably why we hire out instead of using the town's excavator for water line breaks. Well, you know what's really weird with that? 99% of the towns around here don't use excavators for water line breaks. They use backhoes. Like every town around here. Now, granted, you may have one, for instance, by that dam, completely different set of circumstances. And they had United come in with a big excavator and whatever. Okay, that's not normal in any capacity. So, but a normal water line break, the town employees go out, dig it up with a backhoe. That's what they've always done. But then someone says, how come we're renting excavators instead of just using our excavator? It's sitting there, and which was interesting. But
Well, yeah, well, it takes asking questions from people who see things like that, because
the problem is half the people that answer them have no clue. Like, there shouldn't be, like,
that should garner. Wait
Like,
a second.
no
We're
offense-
renting. No. So, like, if it were me, and what you just said is 100% accurate, which you're going off of what you think, right?
I'm going off of what an employee said.
Right. So then it's, well, why are we renting a piece of equipment that we already have? And if it's, well, their guy's qualified because he's worked on this dam for us before. All right. Well, I could buy that, right? Maybe, possibly.
No, this acquisition was we rent an excavator from like Trusted Rental, and one of our employees runs it because we don't use our excavator for some reason.
Is it not working?
No, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
And we rent one even though we have one?
Yeah. Do you want to watch the meeting where it was said?
Oh, what is it? A different size? Different.
Town excavator would dig up pretty much any line that they have, except wouldn't cover the whole damn thing. But that was, like I said, very rare, different circumstance.
All right. So let's give the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to play the what if game. So what if? So do you have to have a license or certification to operate that excavator?
No, all their employees should be
Should.
versed. It's not very hard.
Oh, I mean, you
Taught you how to
taught
run
me how to run one in about 8 minutes. I got it.
I mean, I wouldn't.
But I'm still
put you on
not.
a- I wouldn't let you
Yeah.
dig a water line up.
Yeah, no,
But
exactly. And that's my point is, are they versed like I am, which is you need me to dig a hole where I'm not going to hit anything, because it's going to take,
part of being an employee, in
like you do it and it's like an extension of your arm, where I do it and it's herky-jerky,
Right.
because you have it. And so my point is if our town folks, because don't we have a lot of turnover, if they're operating it like me, so the point I'm getting at is maybe they don't want to admit that they got operators like me that they don't trust with the town lines. They don't want to say it like that because they don't want to hurt their employees' morale. So it's like, these are the kinds of things, though. So, like, believe it or not, I'm the kind of guy that gives everybody the benefit of the doubt, even whenever, like, something sounds suspect, because I don't believe in the general population that people are just that evil. There are evil people out there that are whatever, but in this case, I'm saying...
I'm not saying it's evil. I'm just saying it's mismanagement.
No, well, okay, I can agree. So that's different than how your tone was a little bit earlier. But
Yeah, no.
But my point is if there's a bunch of Stevens out there that are going to, break into the water line because they're not
Right.
as smooth with it, then just say, hey, like we had to get somebody that and it's kind of what he said, but he didn't say it like that because it started off with he didn't know.
You're back to the United thing. That this is a whole different.
Oh, well, I thought that's what you were talking about with the excavator.
No, a previous employee read his exit interview that was never given to the board for interesting reasons.
Oh.
And he
so I'm
said-
conflating two different stories.
Yes. So
I don't think you made this part clear when you started telling the story. that you were
I knew in my
switching.
mind where I was.
Yeah,
you didn't know where you was.
yeah, you didn't say
No.
that you were
A
switching.
previous
from,
employee went and gave his exit interview.
Because when you said that, I was like, I was at the meeting next to you. I heard
Yeah,
the whole
no,
conversation.
no.
All right, so scratch everything. Oh, not everything, but
No. So, previous employee, who apparently was the only one who knew how to run a grader, according to Bert. Which is,
see, but this is like where like the rumors thing gets in.
now a grader, I'll give you that. I've never been in a grader. I guarantee I can run an excavator, I can run a bulldozer, I can run a loader, I can run a skid steer, I can run pretty much any piece of equipment, but I can't run a grader. So we will not go on the grader topic as far as that goes, because that's a skill that, because running a grader is, these are all the buttons, knobs, and all this stuff. So, no. Previous employee gave his exit interview to the board because, the board doesn't want the exit interviews, apparently, according to a vote that happened a little while ago. So, and he talked about mismanagement, and Todd's personality goes from, fine to like bipolar, where 2 minutes later he's pissed off and he's like, well, I didn't even do nothing. I don't know what the hell's going on here. So the environment down there that's why so many people are quitting, it seems, too, or not happy, because holy shit, it's like being in an abusive relationship. Next thing everything's great, and then 2 minutes later you're getting yelled or screamed at or whatever. So he mentioned at the end of that, I have another question, and he's a resident in town. How come we rent the water and sewer department, if they have a break, rents an excavator from Trusted Rental instead of using the highway department's excavator? And then nobody really had an answer except, well, then this is where Jeff talked, where Jeff shouldn't have talked, because Jeff don't know what the hell he's talking about. Don't talk about shit you have no clue about. Well, maybe excavators are, they're not the same. And then Bert's like, you can go get my car right now. And
so basically, you're saying I sound like Jeff over here.
no,
'Cause
but
I don't know anything about it.
you could put me in
right?
5 excavators. It's this exact same thing. The sizes are different, sure.
Well,
So
there's 2 different modes of operation.
they all can change. They all have,
Because you taught me that there's
Yes.
a difference.
yeah, there's 2 different patterns. I run a different pattern than most people. So now, yes, if I got in an excavator and it doesn't have the other pattern, I wouldn't dig a water line up with it, because I would probably hit it. And granted, half the time when you're digging up shit, you hit stuff anyways. But anyways, 5 excavators all lined up. That operator that runs an excavator can run every one of those excavators. Whether the excavator is the biggest one they make or the smallest one, none of that matters. Now, you can be more careful, bigger excavator, more damage, or something, but they all can run it. Just like you can get in any car. The only difference would be, okay, it was a standard and maybe someone didn't know they're in standard. But that's not, excavators don't have that. So instead of just being like, hey, we'll look into it because that doesn't sound right, we kind of like, well, maybe this and maybe that. Like, you have no clue what you're talking about. Stop. Like, just stop talking.
So basically, I just did the
Right.
same thing, though, because I'm pretty sure Jeff is probably on the same line of thinking as me. Is like, well, there's got to be a logical, there's got to be some reason for it. Or, like, because it's probably that he can't fathom that we would just waste money like that. Because that's what it amounts to, right? Is
Well, maybe
we're
they
not
should wake
allocating-
up and realize that seems to be the case.
well,
Like, or if I was Jeff, I'd look at Bert and be like, what do you know about this kind of stuff? Because then Bert would be like, okay, so you don't look like an idiot. No, they're all the same. And he didn't go all crazy, but he just threw it out there. And 95% of the people out there are going to be like, yeah, Jeff makes a good point. But anyone that knows about it is going to be like, no, that was a stupid point, because that's not how it works. It's just like a car. You go get in the car,
Oh.
you drive the car.
I would keep my mouth shut on excavators then, because I feel like I just said the same thing that you're saying that Jeff
But for the
said.
record, I could put you in an excavator for 10 hours, and you could run that excavator and dig a hole and dig up a sewer pipe, whatever. Obviously, the more hours, and
yeah,
the better.
the more comfortable you are. With
But about 10 hours would be enough to get you comfortable to where you know you're naturally starting to do stuff.
So I got 6 more hours before I'm ready to dig up a water line, roughly, maybe 7.
You maybe 20, just
Well, I'm glad to know that I basically you just got onto me for saying the same thing as Jeff. But again, I think that's where that shows you where he's coming from, which is like I can't believe that people wouldn't we're not like I don't think that it doesn't make sense that we would do that unless there was a reason for it, and that's probably the point he was trying to make, and the point that what you're saying is, yeah, no.
But the thing is, the easy fix for that is like, really? Let me write that down, and next meeting I'll get
Right,
back to you,
exactly.
and I'll
That's-
find out exactly when and why that happened, and then if it's happening and it's not supposed to be or whatever, then we'll address it. Because that makes you look intelligent. It makes you look like you care about the concerns of your residents. So we talk about this all the time with the school board because we never give a freaking answer to anybody. And we've said, well, hey, we're going to change this because
Well, it's gotten better. So when
Yes.
we were running 2 years ago,
Correct.
because we kind of ran together,
Right.
that was one of our things was like, and then Jeff came to one of the first meetings I think that I was on, like right after I got elected, and he challenged us to do that, to open it up and have a conversation and, be more transparent, because some of these conversations that we're even having about the board, if they didn't have that open transparency, we wouldn't even know any of this stuff. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So fortunately, they're open with their communication more so than the school board was, and I'd even argue still more than we are now.
very much so.
The flip side also is we haven't had too many people show up over the last, like once COVID kind of went away and people's kids got back into school and started getting back into the routine, like we don't have as many people showing up,
Yeah.
like trying to say, let's get back to normal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And like I said, and just to be clear, so someone's out there thinking that I have some issue with Jeff Kessler, I do not have any issue whatsoever. It's nothing personal against Jeff. Jeff's the reason there's an open forum at the selectmen meeting. Jeff's the one that comes to our meeting and says, hey, you should do this. And I agree 100%. I work on zoning with Jeff. I've worked with him for like 5 years now on zoning. Like, none of this is personal. I know every one of those board members personally, except for Mr.
Well,
Sawyer or Sayer.
I mean, he took it personal when you said, if I find out, which, but like, it was good that we found out that there's a possibility of getting $10,000 per unit for the town. Now we just got to find out what are we going to do with that if we do get it. If everything works out, how are we investing that money?
It got personal when I went after Hunter and proved that he does lie. That's where it all went personal. And that's where it shouldn't go personal. Well, personal towards me, maybe you too, but
Well, I mean,
it's simple. Don't lie, and it won't be an issue. Don't embellish the truth either. Don't tell a story, then suddenly it changes.
don't equivocate it. Don't tell, because
Just be brutally honest with people.
yeah, because I think that so there's a fine line between being brutally honest and then making sure you don't say anything that's going to get you in any type of legal trouble. That's why I always try to say allegedly, I suspect, my opinion, because you know what I mean. Like it's hard to know anything for certainty outside of your own decisions and what you're thinking, like what the truth is, because it lies somewhere in this realm between however many people are at that location. So, but yeah, my observation is that it starts off because he doesn't want to answer, or he doesn't want to put somebody in a predicament, maybe, right? Like to give him the benefit of the doubt. But then as he's pushed, then you find out, well, it seemed like you didn't have any information. Now you have all the information. Or,
That's where it always goes wrong too.
well, that's why it's
Because you
like,
just can't just stick with that. And then that's when Ari steps in it, because then he just continues.
because it appears that it's like, well, and then when pushed, then it's like, all right, well, I do know, and blah blah, so you can lie or not tell the whole truth, even if nothing you say is a lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
I can
still
sit here
being
and tell you
deceptive.
50% of the truth.
Yeah.
Everything I tell you is true, and then you're going to come to my conclusion, but yet you don't have the other.
You're being deceptive because
You don't have
yes.
the other three facts to make that. So there's there's.
And I get it. All of this is super complicated. Trust me. Going to the school board and going to do all this stuff. Still going to do it. It just is. It's super complicated. It's not as easy as you think. It's not. Hey,
Well, you got to
make
convince everybody.
Yeah, and you can't just make a motion and then this is going to happen, because there's other things you have to think about. Okay, well, we do this. What the bad parts of it? What happens over here? There's so much. It's so much more complicated than you think. Is it overcomplicated? In my opinion, yeah, I think it's very much overcomplicated. But that's the system. That's not the individuals in it. So I just want to be just forthright with everybody. Just tell them what the deal is and go from there. Like I just, for me, I'm more like brutally honest, and because I'd rather have someone be brutally honest to my face than run their mouth behind my back and just, dude, you got like, and then half the time too, talk to the person, right? Granted, I could go talk to Hunter
He invited you. You should.
many times.
I've told you. For the record.
Yeah, I know.
Because you have that ability. Like I am an introvert. You are an extrovert. You were in business. Your ability to communicate and engage with people fully affected how much money you made on any given day, right? Whereas I didn't have to. Like, yeah, you need to develop relationships and, you know, all that other good stuff. But I am not good because I'm just not, I'm not good at that kind of stuff. Well, maybe I am, but you know what I mean? I can't go up to somebody and just start talking to them and whatever else. Like that's more your style. Now you put a uniform on me, I can go right up and talk to anybody because it's like
So
almost
it's
like
you,
a
you're just
character.
scared.
No,
Exactly.
it's like a character that I played.
Well, it's the same thing. If we're sitting behind a desk, it's easier to talk about these things than as a stand up at the lectern. Or like, I get that. I get it 100%. Like, I'm getting better at it. But, you know, like, to deliver it, like, we'll end up talking in front of a lot of people. Like, that makes me nervous. I don't care for that. I'm getting better with it. But, yeah. Anyways, we'll wrap this up. We've gone on about this forever. So, one other thing I saw that I wanted to mention was I saw that the family of Mark Hudson had a GoFundMe up, and I'm not a big fan of GoFundMe just because GoFundMe takes like 10% or so. I'm jealous as hell of the people that created that whole thing because they're now mega rich. But you'll see it on like What's Up Newport or Tracy Conroy, who's a family member. That's her cousin, I believe, headed up there. And so if you know, if that's something you're able to do and you're interested in, I just wanted to mention it. That family's been through a lot lately. Heidi, who I graduated with, which is Mark's sister, recently lost her 20-year-old son not long at all ago. So you know, prayers to that family and all they're going through. But I saw that, and you know, I was like, man, imagine having to bury another relative, family member. Like, I don't even think it's been a month, maybe, but like, so, or if you reach out to, you know, Tracy Connery directly or Heidi, and just be like, hey, what's your address? I'll just mail you a, you know, check for whatever. If it's $10, $5, $20, whatever you could, you know, if you can do something. You know, so I just want to mention that. I think it's a valuable thing for, you know, a community member that in need. I mean, Heidi lives in Claremont, but it doesn't matter. Tracy's in Newport, and Mark was from Newport, and this happened, you know. So, one other thing we talked about a couple weeks ago was the 15th, so a couple weeks coming up here, live animals, hands-on activities, and more. The Fish and Game headquarters in Concord's doing a Discover Wild, New Hampshire. It's on the 15th from 10 to 3, no cost. So if you're looking for something, then put it on the calendar. And then I'm going to wrap the show up here in a minute, but let's just talk about these 3 interesting things that have happened in the last less than a week. So Philadelphia residents are advised to drink bottled water following chemical spill in the Delaware River tributary. Sunday, they advised on Sunday they consider using bottled water for drinking and cooking because of a chemical spill that happened on Friday. And then there's a map. Let's see. Friday's chemical spill in the Delaware River occurred in Bristol Township in Bucks County. The Delaware River formed a boundary between the states of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The spill was a result of a pipe burst at a chemical plant called Trezo PLC or whatever. Officials estimate between 8,100 and 12,000 gallons of latex finishing material, a water-soluble acrylic polymer solution that was released into the Mill Creek, which obviously that goes in there and goes in through. So there's that one, and then there was a chocolate factory in, I believe it was West Reading, Pennsylvania, that exploded, which if you've seen the video of that, that's insane. They've pulled one out alive from the rumble, 5 missing, and at least 2 dead. And this was as of maybe a day ago, so I don't know. This wasn't as of this morning. So that's scary. And then over in New Jersey, I guess a pickle factory went up in flames. Just wondering what's happening. Like,
I don't know. I mean,
we had
it's
to,
interesting. You would think that with all the regulations that you wouldn't have fires and explosions.
remember, like at one point we had that list of, like, from last year, like 50 places that had burnt, and it was like, this is too many to be like normal. But then you have, and there's been a couple train wrecks since the one in Akron, or excuse me, in East Palestine. It just hasn't been as bad, but what is going on?
Well, I mean, one thing is that we're paying closer attention to it. So
Yes, that's
Like-
fair.
like, is it more because we're paying attention to it more, or is it just, or is it really just average that we have these kinds of things? Because chocolate plant blows up. I mean, aside from you don't want anything to happen, God forbid. It feels bad for the people who have perished and, the 5 that they're still looking for. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really affect our food supply, does it?
I mean,
Pickles,
probably
same
not.
thing. Like, do you need pickles?
If you make sandwiches.
If you don't want to dehydrate it, all right, you can drink pickle juice. But
I mean, obviously the bigger thing is this chemical spill into the Delaware River, but
yeah, that's the thing that concerns me. Is so now you have the chemical spill. Well,
I was going to bring up I forgot to do this when I was downstairs. in
because
yours.
it affects like the Ohio River Valley.
Again,
It feeds once it feeds in there, which is why they're talking about our sewer treatment plant, right? Making sure that all these tributaries that feed into the Connecticut, because the Connecticut feeds out to.
What's interesting though? We'll see what kind of fines this company gets, because they threaten the town of Newport, these huge fines every day, and the little bit that's leaking with phosphate nitrate into the river or whatever is nothing compared to this and the 250,000 gallons of vinyl chloride that they just burnt up into the atmosphere 2 months ago. Like, makes you wonder though, doesn't it?
I mean, there's double standards. There's craziness all over the place. Like, that's why I always say it's best to try to focus on the town, because you get angry. The further you go up the chain of politics, the more disenfranchised it seems like it's easier to get. But like you said, here locally, it's not really about what party you may or may not belong to. It's about trying to take care of each other.
Yeah.
In a cost-effective, most affordable way. And while we're trying to do that, it's like those above us are making it harder and harder, almost like you said earlier, like intentional to like break our backs.
Makes you think.
It makes you think that, and it could just be the confluence of all these things, because we need if we are leaching phosphorus and stuff out there, then yeah, we need to fix that. But $28 million is a large price tag for this small town.
Yeah, I got more questions about that too, because it seems we're building it to twice the size of what we have now. They had said that we're building it half the size because the one we have now is much bigger than it needs to be. But
Well, doubling the capacity.
right, so if you double the capacity, why are we doubling capacity? That's probably why it costs $28 million. Why don't you make it 50% more capacity? And then how long have we been at this capacity? For the last 10 years, have we maintained this capacity, or have we steadily been going up, 0.1 per year or something? Like, there should be numbers on that.
Well, if our population, you said you thought it was over 7,000 now, so I mean our population's gone up, even though we don't have the housing somehow.
Yeah, but a lot of new houses and stuff that we put in, they're not going to be on city sewer. These apartments will be, but like, because there's not much land and like development opportunities that are closely to city sewer or water. You know, anywhere out in North Newport, no, it's not city sewer or water. So there's development opportunities, you know, right? There's some land here, you know, there's land all over the place, but not so much in town that would be on that water system, sewer system. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. But.
Well, that's why you got to look at the strategic plan. What's it look like 2, 5, 10, 20 years from now? I don't know how far out the master plan goes. I would suspect
Should be
a decade or 3.
something, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, we have stuff to do, meetings to do, go to. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, you know, stuff again today and like watch some of it. Like when I just watched a few things over the weekend and, you know, talked to some people over the, you know, there's a lot going on. And I'm not trying to like, so if people are like, oh, he's just trying to like destroy our town. Bullshit. I ain't trying to destroy nothing. I'm trying to fix it because what's happening shouldn't be happening. And so sometimes, you know, you got to rip that Band-Aid off so it can start to heal kind of thing. And that's kind of how I feel like where we're at.
Well, I think if you are strong enough to run, you know, because it's a thankless, hard position. And I guarantee you, everybody that's on the school board and everybody that's on the select board, they want what's best for the town. But what you're saying is like pause, because sometimes you need to be told that because you feel like you need to make a decision. But like it's okay to take 2 weeks unless there's like an emergency and you need a decision tonight. Then that's one thing.
Well,
but you shouldn't be getting that kind of stuff. Kind of like how Bert refuses to talk about an issue on the school board if he doesn't have it 4 or 5 days in advance so he can read it, digest it, look up any laws, make some phone calls. I mean, he does more than I do, and like when I listen to him talk, it gives me, all right, well, I should have looked up this law, you know. So I mean, I'm getting, you know, not that I'm trying to emulate Bert, but I'm trying to emulate the fact that he does a lot of research, and sometimes I think I do, and then he knows the law, I guess, is like he knows where to look. And because I didn't grow up here, I'm not as familiar with New Hampshire's. I got to get better at it. I need to just open that thing up. And
I told one selectman the other day, I was like, you know, this is what you should do. This would fix so many of the issues. Just put Hunter in his office, and he stays in his office and just writes grants, and then just hire a PR person to do all like any of the PR stuff, any of the like the meetings and like that kind of thing. Because then you take the whole personality out of it. And then you'd be like, well, we're going to spend more money? Sure. If he's getting us $20 million in grants, he's worth $160,000 a year, obviously. So do that. It fixes all your issues overnight. Because my thing is, like, he doesn't have a personality. He's not a people person. And you have to be a people person in that position. Just like the chief, you know, the police chief. You got to be a people person. You do. You can be the best cop on earth, but if you're not a people person, that's not going to work well. So that's what I said. I was like, just you could end it all today. Be like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're taking all your power away as far as power.
yeah, but then
It'd make his job easier. He'd probably say, hell yeah, I'll just write grants and do this. Sure. I don't have to take any heat anymore. This person can deal with all the personalities and all the personnel and all
the. For his position, you're gonna get heat. Like you got to know that you're gonna take stuff that. Like you don't, it's going to be hard to hear, but deep down, if you know you're doing the right thing, then it shouldn't affect you. It will, don't get me wrong. But if you know that in your heart, I think I'm doing what's right. Like you said, I think there's some of it where it's like, it's trying to be nice or kind or, you know what I mean? Instead of just coming out and saying it, ripping the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
But yeah, just be upfront as soon as you're asked, and that makes it a lot easier too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Thank you for watching the Tim and Steve Show.
Artlist.io